pointing out how it got flustered by their opponent's little kamikaze stunt. As he threw his sword, the unit admitted his disappointment, forced to submit to a coward like the Golden Hand. At that moment, Yan looked at the opposing player and realized the guy wasn't playing fairly at all. With that, the Golden Hand was forced to use the Grand Escape card, letting him retreat after giving up all mission rewards, which piqued Yan's interest. With that, Yol Choy bailed on the battle, glad his genius brother was a unit, not a leading player. But just then, our hero found himself getting skewered by the very sword Yan threw, slamming him to the ground. At the same time, Christina busted out his cheat codes to call off the rogue players, making the Greed Lord victorious. After that, our panting, struggling protagonist was just a mess, suffering on the ground. This left him no choice but to hit the system recovery function. With that, our hero avoided bleeding out for good. Yol Choy still couldn't wrap his head around his brother being in the game. Christina asked the protagonist if he could even take on Yan. So, Yol Choy threw the question right back at him. Both responded with an awkward silence. With that, our heroes decided to reshape their strategy as their journey, like some level-up manhwa, became more difficult. After that, player number 8 activated an emergency evacuation, putting his citizens safely inside a full-capacity bunker, provided he actually owned one. With no danger in sight, the citizens started emerging back to the surface. Yol Choy began to wonder about the casualties from their short battle. As the player revealed losing 30% of his units, our hero was now fully aware of how powerful his brother and Peace 99 truly were. Christina decided to restore the city before rethinking their plan, then surprised his avatar by predicting his very thoughts. The player was starting to grasp the unit's way of thinking, correctly predicting that Yol Choy wanted to beef up the city. Christina revealed a solution existed that followed the game's rules. Our hero was shocked as the player accessed the system, and just like that, a new structure began to emerge next to their city, like a classic level-up manhwa upgrade. The wielder of the book was shocked to see such a sight during an intermission, but then he realized tons of maps were appearing simultaneously. The Greed Lord revealed a unique mission, a one-shot deal for each player entering the abandoned world. The map itself was lush with some surprisingly pleasant greenery. An ogre got a swift bop on the head. With that, the military cleared the perimeter, then went to pick the targeted Sally flowers, a strawberry-flavored ingredient for recovery potions, no less. And so the harvest began. The abandoned world was a goldmine of treasures, perfect for gathering riches, but failing its mission would trap the losing city in the abandoned world, turning it into a prison. That wasn't the only catch. Any human outside the game piece at departure would be stuck there forever. The old man started to worry as some citizens took this chance to flee the city. The thief pointed out they were terrified after seeing their top champ get demolished. Like in some level-up manhwa, this left the Spear Maiden to quietly reflect. Meanwhile, over at the police station, Dusk was handling paperwork when something caught his eye. It had been 4 days since Game Piece 8 entered the abandoned world, and the book's wielder, who had completely vanished from sight, kept publishing strategy guides, making the inspector wonder where he was. At the same time, the Greed Lord watched silently as our hero plotted. Just then, Yol Choy snapped after countless battle simulations. They couldn't find a single path to a theoretical victory. The protagonist started to fall into desperation, thinking his brother was just invincible in a one-on-one. Seeing this, Christina told the hero not to disappoint him. Yol Choy confirmed they had plenty of time, since one turn in the abandoned world lasts a century. The Greed Lord confirmed this, assuring them one could theoretically live there forever. The book wielder figured players came here for only 2 reasons: farm resources like player 17, or just throw in the towel. Any player wanting to stop the fighting without becoming a city eater retreats to this world until the game is over. Hearing the name Abandoned World, Yol Choy thought, then surprised Christina by admitting plans were useless. His brother was unbeatable in a fair game. This forced them to aim for a completely shameless advantage. But to secure that advantage, our hero had to become the 7th player in the game. Christina realized the young man wanted to gain knowledge that was forbidden to units, and so the player, to Yol Choy's shock, agreed to help his strongest unit. Eager to see the final results, Yol Choy got annoyed, realizing the player could just ditch them and save himself if they failed. Suddenly, space itself began to warp and twist, startling our hero as he and the Demon Lord arrived somewhere new. Christina noted the promise to return wasn't a complete lie. Countless cities stretched before them as he revealed the true form of this insane level-up manhwa. The Greed Lord confirmed the promised universe was already absorbed by the game. This absorption was the inevitable destiny for any planet captured by the game. Realizing their victory was worthless, Yol Choy wondered about the game maker. Meanwhile, someone was hunting for player number 8. That someone was none other than Yen, who learned player number 8 was a top-tier monster. A demon lord, much like in a level-up manhwa he'd slaughtered. And at that very moment, standing in a pool of blood, the man wondered how the monster acted as a player. Then it hit Ian. He too could seize player status by force. The victorious golden hand seized the cities of the players he had defeated. Leaving the fates of the ruined pieces in his hands, he decided to dismantle them to reinforce his own game piece. And with that, the player stood victorious and tried to locate city number 8, only to find the game piece was now untraceable, either hiding or protected. Meanwhile, atop the tower, our hero decided to launch a broadcast. A nervous Yol Choy introduced himself, thanking the citizens for their hard work over the past 3 months. He saw how they'd managed to improve their game piece and enjoy the ongoing upgrades. Our hero revealed he'd forced his broadcast onto every screen, because every unit, including the deserters, had to listen to him. He was about to expose the true face of the game, its players, and his master plan. Quietly sipping his tea, the Greed Lord enjoyed the show in silence. Yol Choy admitted his plan wasn't risk-free, but rather reckless, pointing out the safer option was to stay in the abandoned world. But once they heard it, the citizens would finally understand his perspective. With that, the young man began to reveal a truth about the game. This level-up manhwa game could be a divine blessing or a demonic curse designed to torture mortals. But this was just the Greed Lord's past perspective, leaving our hero intrigued by the game's true face. Christian had explained that all intelligent life futilely wishes for something great to worship. As for him, the idea of a perfect being with no need to act, and thus no reason to exist, was simply a ridiculous illusion. In other words, the universe is like a jungle, where each creature hunts others just to exist and coexist. The game is also part of that jungle, and it feeds on entire planets and stars. Though it targets worlds with intelligent creatures, its exact nutrient is still unknown. This entity also uses the game's process to select its prey, which intrigued the young man. Yol Choy was particularly baffled as to why the entity used a game to hunt. So, the Greed Lord explained that intelligent beings easily get into games for entertainment. Besides, a game is the best way for self-important beings to push themselves to their limits. As the Greed Lord noted how one naturally aims for victory, our hero shot back that their win would be meaningless, as they'd all end up on the game's plate. After it completely devours an entire planet, the game just roams space again, looking for another snack. Hiju, overwhelmed by this truth bomb, tried to summarize the shocking revelation, claiming the game is basically a monster that gobbles up planets, a fact Yol Choy confirmed. He admitted they didn't know if the game itself was actually alive. Just then, Jang barged in, pointing out that their planet was doomed to be shredded into game maps, win or lose. Our hero confirmed it, adding they'd play the role of monsters attacking new units, sending the crowd into a nervous chatter. Dix then asked about the players, a question that player number 8 decided to answer personally. He introduced players as past units who got so powerful they started to threaten the game's ecosystem. And so, the entity redefines their roles, giving them more authority inside the game to elevate units into players. While the Spear Maiden's brain was buffering, the thief took it in stride and asked Yol Choy for his strategy. And so, our hero took a deep breath. But to everyone's absolute surprise, our hero declared they would hunt the Star Devourer and use its power to restore their world and everyone it consumed. In short, our hero's main goal was to kill the game itself. Yol Choy, who saw the game as a hunter, affirmed they had only 2 choices for survival. The first was to coexist with it. The other was to struggle and resist. The protagonist naturally chose violence, as he was too furious at the Star Devourer for the casualties it caused to just accept it. With that decision made, it was the crowd's turn to choose. Fight beside him to slay the entity, or peacefully remain a part of the game. That night, the moon shined brightly. On player number 8, the hero's curiosity was piqued, and he decided to ask him something. Yol Choy wanted to know if the Greed Lord was a player in the past, which the guy confirmed. He confirmed he'd been a player, a demon lord, and even a regular unit. But when he tried to transcend the realm of players, his run was cut short by a golden-handed game worshipper who defeated him. The horned guy had his might sealed, getting demoted to a demon lord, making Yol Choy curious about his real purpose. Our protagonist asked him for no scary spoilers, seeing as he affirmed he wouldn't find out until he was back at his best. And just like that, our heroes were set to fight side by side until the very end of this level-up manhwa. This made the greed lord let out an evil laugh, which Ulroy immediately told him to knock off. With the next dawn arriving, the streets were dead silent as wind whistled through the building's rubble. At the tower, Yol Choy made his way inside, heading for the door and checking on everyone as he walked into the room. The soldier confirmed preparations were going smoothly. Temporary shelters were built for citizens while their homes were restored. As the units gained strength, some indecisive citizens were still debating the tiny matter of fleeing or fighting. After seeing the huge power gap between themselves and the inhabitants of City Number 99, Yol Choy declared everyone must prioritize training alone, stating they don't plan to fight City Number 99, but to finish the game before them. And when Dusk asked if they'd have to face them again, our hero admitted he'd have to count on them, seeing how he could never beat Yan alone. This had everyone considering staying in the abandoned world. Meanwhile, as the former demon lord reflected on his thoughts, Christina found it odd, as he was more worried about a unit like Yan Choi than his nemesis, the Golden Hand, which he found completely bizarre. Meanwhile, in Game Piece 99, the usual silence reigned in the streets. All units stood ready to fight, while further away, Yoon finally realized past events were due to a bug in the game. Some bugs could create game scenarios that even the creators could never predict. Explaining how the Greed Lord discovered and used one of these very errors, Yan summoned choice items, using them with perfectly timed skills to create a fissure in the game's reality. With that, Yan finally got his hands on a glitch crystal. As player 99 was calculating his next move, it was suddenly startled to find its strongest unit standing right behind him. Enjoying the player's perspective, the young man's blue eyes glowed purple as he confirmed this view wasn't alien. Upon seeing this, the Golden Hand quickly tried using its card, but it was too late. As Yan stabbed the entity in a blink, the young man then used the system error that he created against his opponent. After a moment, Yan pierced the player's secrets, learning the truth about intelligent life, units, and players. By driving his sword deeper, the young man uncovered the truth about the game. Yan then found the similarity between himself and the Star Eater, realizing it chose him because they both aimed to live. As no one could hope to end Yol Choy, suddenly alerted, the genius gained distance, saw the Golden Hand trembling, and guessed this was the game's answer. Just then, space began to crack, uncovering player 99's true form, but the entity seemed confused, spawning in without weapons. Yan noticed a flare in the sky, assuming the Star Eater wanted to see who was worthy of the player title. Back in the abandoned world, an old protagonist stood firm after 2 centuries passed. Yol Choy demanded it again from the Greed Lord, who summoned his cheats, restoring our hero's youth for a 4th time. But he was not the only one. The military also regained their prime, keeping 200 years of experience. This applied to all in City Number 8. Christiana was intrigued by the will to keep the city's form, so Yol Choy affirmed this great level-up manhwa structure was symbolic. But the insides of the city's buildings were now totally different. Our hero, who felt odd without his beard, noted that despite their newfound youth, the game kept on going. This meant 2 turns had passed since they arrived. Yol Choy wanted to stay in the abandoned world for 1 more turn, but the player found it a waste of time. Our hero affirmed that their time here would be worth it. A silence reigned in a square in the game when suddenly piece number 8 emerged from the void. And with that, the Greed Lord, back in the game, had to roll the dice. Player number 8 used multiple cards to ensure a huge leap on the board. For Yol Choy, taking baby steps was a waste of time, just letting Yen leave them in the dust. After 3 turns in the abandoned world, our heroes had to bolt to the goal before Yen could reach it. With that, their game piece landed on Capture the Flag, with the simple goal of snatching the other city's flag. Just like that, game piece 62 was randomly picked for this one on one showdown against City Number 8. And with that, the stage was set. The level 271 mayor of City 62 boasted how blueprints from the Cannon Tower mission let their city evolve, before dissing City Number 8 for its primitive form, as his city flaunted a gigantic cannon, making him think capturing the flag was a joke. And so, the cannon fired, aiming to obliterate the opposing piece in 1 shot, resulting in a massive explosion. With that, a huge dust cloud billowed out. Then, a laughing figure emerged from it, City Number 8. It used high-quality materials to rebuild, plus its 3 centuries of tech experience to throw up a shield around itself, rendering the enemy cannon totally useless against its defenses. And just then, the heroic K2 Peregrine Falcon and its spell-filled magazine, which the 300-year-old city could now craft, were deployed. City Number 8's arsenal was enhanced, like a level-up Manhwa, now crafting its own equipment. But that wasn't the only upgrade to leave the mayor speechless. He saw a massive wave of flying creatures heading his way. Our hero city caught a lucky break, as the abandoned world, which usually has random maps, gave them one they already knew. The nest of the Emperor Griffins, whose winged beasts were a huge help on a past mission. The mayor started fearing for his life, and got wrecked moments later. The defeated man then laughed at our heroes, saying they should have finished the mission faster, claiming they'd never escape the wrath of his player. But just then, the player controlling City 62 was taken out by a dark unit with what looked like demonic eyes. This left the mayor and his crew looking sorry and humbled. Choi began thinking about how to refine his new powers, then turned to the Greed Lord, who already knew what to do. As Christina finished absorbing her latest prey, the player held the special magic card, Second Wind, letting his game piece skip intermission and roll again for half the rewards. And just like that, another defeated game piece was added to the Greed Lord's collection. And just like that, Second Wind activated, letting our heroes advance once more. Meanwhile, in the city of White and Silence, the Golden Hand was using the system, only this time, its owner was corrupted, with his new controller sitting proudly on his head. Yan, who came out on top from the fight, had ascended to playerhood and forced the old player to be his servant, building a throne right on his head. Just then, the young man looked to the horizon, spotting a bright, distant light ahead that marked the end of this hellish cosmic game. 5 turns past the abandoned world, and our heroes, like in a level-up manhwa, just kept winning. Their high-tech gear kept them undefeated, even after 13 wild turns. By the 25th turn, City Number 8's game piece collection was massive. They just kept rolling and winning. And just like that, the system praised City Number 8 for being the first to snag the final part of the game. Yol Choy smugly confirmed his plan was working perfectly. The final square was locked behind one last mission: climb 3 floors, with each level getting ridiculously harder. To tackle the final floor's mission, the Greed Lord decided to just break the game, not simply win it. Just like that, the dice were cast. They saw 4 stairways leading to the second floor, and our heroes realized they could waste turns just turning around if they didn't roll the right number, leaving them no choice but to pray for good luck. But just then, Yol Choy started ripping into their player for overshooting the stairs by 1 tile. Instead, the Greed Lord landed them on a sealed Demon Lord square, forcing his city to destroy corrupt pillars and their guardians. With that, the baddest Demon Lord, a level 10 Kaba, a Demon Lord of the Ultimate Fist, had spawned in, when suddenly a new challenger arrived to face the 6-armed demon. Surprising him, Kaba actually praised the unit's bravery. But before he could even enjoy the fight, the Demon Lord of the Ultimate Fist found himself shredded to bits. His killer, the Master Swordsman, apologized for the quick finish, saying he was on the clock. Kaba couldn't believe a Pillar Guardian was this powerful. But as he slammed his feet on the ground, the level 12 demigod of the blade, Jack, had reached the absolute peak of his art, letting him enter a divine domain, and confirmed his power was from a 300-year training montage. Yol Choy noted they couldn't use movement cards, so Krusha explained the last mission releases a huge amount of emotional energy, something the Star Eater absolutely loves, which is why it takes its time to savor it. With that, a new turn began, and the dice were cast. The Greed Lord rated his dice. City Number 8 advanced on the board as our hero prayed for a 5. With that roll, they finally reached the next floor. But as our hero was relieved to finally reach floor number 2, he noticed the player had spotted something. Seeing City Number 99 arrive, the former Demon Lord noted that their true competition was finally here. The book wielder said their level-up manhwa-style cheat codes gave them 4 more turns than the City of White and Silence. But just then, both felt alarmed as a shady figure on a throne started to appear, making them realize the Golden Hand wasn't the player anymore. The title Player 99 now belonged to Yen. The young man's glowing purple eyes made them realize he was now packing cheat codes, just like Christina, who pointed out it took the genius unit no time at all to create and master those cheats, even though it took him a millennium. Just like that, the game changed. The Greed Lord was intrigued, but totally confident he'd still win. And boom, the dice for City 99 were rolled, landing on a 6, which totally shocked our hero. This made Yol Choy grill Krika about his dice control, but the player just claimed the 6 was pure luck. Kosa also guessed the game itself was rigged, before getting a brilliant idea. And with that, some massive entity started emerging from the cloudy void, revealing itself to be a city eater. The monster went straight for player 99, But suddenly, it was stopped cold by the golden hand, which promptly stabbed the creature. Yan then used his pet to infect the city eater with some nasty bug power, letting the new villain absorb the monster like in a level-up manhwa. With that, the former player started sprouting legs, which made the golden hand even stronger. This made Yol Choy ask his player about his so-called genius plan. But Crush Sheena just brushed it off, saying now they knew city eaters couldn't beat Yan. Just then, our guy got a notification as the system started spamming him with a ton of messages, but our guy calmed the monster down, promising that he was definitely going to crush his brother. After that, both surviving cities made it to the final four, setting them up for one last showdown against each other. The Spear Maiden was totally floored to see the other city show up at the exact same time, which made Yol Choy wonder if his brother was cheating. But the Greed Lord insisted cheating was unlikely, since it wasn't possible for players, leaving our protagonist completely stunned. And with that, the system dropped the final mission: War Without Borders, forcing both cities to fight until the last unit fell. Yet, the game let units pick which city's banner to fight for, which Hiju thought was ridiculous, since no one in their city would ever betray it. All the units backed her up, remembering all the battles they'd survived together. But just then, Hiju was intrigued when her system window suddenly popped open. Turns out, Yan decided to make a live broadcast. It was a message to all of his brother's allies, basically telling them to give up. The young man claimed he was only willing to grant this mercy, because this whole fight was a complete waste of his time. Yan then reminded them how they failed to beat him as a unit, and how he'd since become a player. A classic level-up manhwa story. Causing the crowd to argue, Yan then added that the citizens should fight for him if they wanted to keep the powers the game gave them, before declaring their opinions didn't matter anyway, since their city was doomed to crumble before him regardless. With that, everyone was left with 1 hour to choose which city's banner they would fight for. Yan waited for the results, his eyes cold as ice. Everyone took a moment to think before making their final call. System pings echoed across the city, and after just 2 minutes, everyone rejected Yan's offer to stand firm and fight for their home. Just as our hero expected, City Number 8 had spent 3 whole centuries in the abandoned world. While some chose to stay and build their own city, others decided to go into a long slumber, leaving only one type of person in the city. As griffins soared high in the sky, the remaining inhabitants, who, as true warriors, were ready for a fight to the finish. Yan quietly analyzed the battlefield. With that, the final countdown kicked off. As the young player prepped for the fight, both cities rallied their forces. As the masked units deployed their wings, Hu and her men stood poised on their winged mounts. And just like that, each brother began to walk toward the other. Small steps quickly became huge, running leaps. Instantly, Yan and Yul clashed steel as the final battle began. The brothers' battle was fierce. Yan swiftly evaded his brother's lunge, forcing our hero to drop his weapon before throwing a failed punch that Yan quickly dodged. The player easily evaded every fist his brother threw, when suddenly our hero found himself impaled by a glacier. The ice lifted Yul high into the sky, who then noticed a bright light as a colossal meteor headed right for him. Yan watched as a gigantic explosion rocked the area, patiently waiting for the outcome of his attack. Yet, his brother seemed intact behind the dust. The player then noted Yul had acquired new powers, but our hero affirmed that this was just the tip of the iceberg. The protagonist, clad in his new mysterious armor, Ragnarok, a true level-up manhwa item, affirmed he had plenty more to offer. Seeing the system offered no data on the outfit, player number 99 speculated Yul had forged this armor by hand. As the armor's designer charged at him, Yan deduced that Yul had one single reason to create such an item. The protagonist's attack resulted in a massive energy blow, but Yan, who evaded it by a hair, realized Ragnarok was meant to boost his brother's physical potential. This left Yul disappointed. His first true punch didn't connect. Yan then pointed out that a speed increase would be pointless, since he could predict his brother's attacks, leaving him speechless, before calling out his brother on the fact this wasn't his only available trick, leaving his brother in a really tough spot. Meanwhile, thunderous clouds began to form, as the storm-summoning epic staff, the Umbrella of Unsa, was opened as two were about to fight thousands. Dusk decided to start the fight as his partner charged up his gauntlet, determined to protect his home at all costs. And so, by combining the power of that gauntlet with the Umbrella of Unsa, a combined attack was unleashed. With that, a giant thunderous tornado had been created as the storm was unleashed. At the same time, Hiju found herself completely surrounded in the sky. Yet, the dragon avatar wasn't discouraged. flipping her ride over while disintegrating the opposing masked soldiers, when suddenly, Hiju was alarmed as 4 spearmen lunged for her back, and so the Maiden of Flames quickly countered them all before dealing with each one of her winged attackers, incinerating 2 of the white masks in her path. Hiju knew this fight wouldn't be child's play, as she faced men armed with the legendary ice spear of dragon slaying, a weapon from the dragon-slaying knights especially effective against fire dragons. At the same time, the inspector stood firm as the opposing forces shielded themselves from the thunderstorm with a unique item. This weapon was, of course, the legendary Sword of Wanan. While Dusk complimented their foe on his quick reflexes, his partner confirmed they expected a tough fight. Both he and Hiu were determined to smash their foes, since special skills were useless against them. At the same time, the brothers' fierce fight was still raging on. Yel tried to reason with his brother, pleading with him for help and to take out players in the game. Yet, Yan stayed silent, realizing his brother was just stalling, and the plan's key player wasn't him. Christina was then stunned to find player number 99 right in front of him, poised to strike. Yol Choy couldn't have been more irritated. He wanted to defeat his brother. Just this one time, Yan was surprised when his rapier was suddenly blocked. His brother used a new power that made him curious. Iron Jar's tactical jacket has a special skill called Berserk, unleashing an animalistic madness, making him attack friend and foe alike. As the outfit began consuming him, our hero wondered how his armor could enhance his personality stats. And though it didn't curb his rage, it did let him hit the peak physical stats the game allowed. Like in a level-up manhwa, Yan stood speechless before the beastly transformation, as his brother tore off his armor and destroyed his rapier. Yol let out a vicious roar before striking his brother, sending him flying. This caused the sea to tremble, which the soldiers mistook for an earthquake, but the lieutenant knew this was the start of the final battle, reloading as the enemy approached. With that, a massive number of horse riders charged toward them. John quickly requested an assault, sharing the enemy coordinates. Upon receiving the data, the colonel ordered the use of ice ammunition and a spell to differentiate allies from foes. With that, ice spell missiles were fired, dealing massive damage to the attacking squadron of riders. The lieutenant then ordered Air Force 8 to attack, preparing to bombard the enemy with their thunder bombs. But just then, enemy air forces arrived. Numerous winged spearmen charged the winged beasts and the riders. The bombers were ordered to continue their assault, while the other air forces engaged the flying masks. With that, the men leaped from their mounts. And just like that, an all-out battle erupted between the silent masks and the military of City Number 8. John summoned a battle hammer and whacked an enemy with a skill, Mace of Judgment, which smashes nearby foes. The lieutenant then used his city's hole-digging grenade, creating a massive pit for the masked men to fall into. The soldier knew City Number 8 was losing, yet he was determined to use their full arsenal to repel the invaders. Just then, the ground began to tremble as the white masks who survived his assault emerged from the earth. John didn't care about the power gap. Their main goal was never winning the battle, so he and his forces kept fighting. Meanwhile, back in the player's chaotic void, the Berserk Ule kept unloading devastating attacks. Yan, who was covered in injuries, struggled to fend off his brother, realizing Ule was attacking with just pure physical power as he lunged, but the broken blade shattered on impact. A real bummer for our player. Just then, the beast was intrigued. A teleportation ticket had been activated. Noticing a distant light, Yan whipped out a card and called out to his brother for maxing his physical power, reminding him this was still a level-up manhwa. Yul quickly charged again, causing a massive explosion. The beast's head was still juiced up. Now far from a severely injured and armless Yul, this sudden damage came from the power of Yan's card, the Aegis Shield, which returns physical damage to the attacker, but is still weak to magic. Despite his injuries, the pain didn't faze the beast's bloodlust as he reattached his limbs and grew a new helmet. Yul charged his brother again, who would have pointed out how absurd that was if his brother could even understand him. But as the beast charged at Yan, he was startled by a voice from out of nowhere. Just like that, both brothers were engulfed in a huge explosion. This magic intrigued player 99, as the caster wasn't player 8 or his brother's summons, none of whom had that power. After checking on her child, the mother told him they were both just fine. With that, she ended her call with son, Yol Choy. But when she turned to her husband to find their other son, she found him petrified. It was beginning. Insect-like creatures appeared, feasting on humans as the Choy parents fled. But just then, the father received the ultimate dice. With that, the parents received the Ankh of Resurrection, which greatly enhances stats. This item could also cure any unit of any disease. Instantly, both husband and wife had the same idea. But with citizens rampaging and killing each other during the monster invasion, the path was difficult for the parents, but in the end, they finally managed to reach the hospital. However, this victory came with a cost. The mother was fatally wounded, and her husband paused to think, and just as he went to use the item to heal her, her gentle smile was a selfless answer. With that, the Ankh was used on the proper person. Now, back in the present, to the brothers' fight. Yan completely destroyed his brother's arm before obliterating the rest of his upper body. But as the player tried to cast a spell, Yol, who regenerated instantly, began biting the staff before he detonated himself. This put Yan in a tough spot. He then told his regenerating brother that this form was rather challenging, but his pawns were easy to eliminate. Yol countered that his allies were no pawns, but human lives. Yan revealed it didn't matter, since in or out of the game, the weak are just toys for the powerful, saying it's better to bow to the strongest or risk living an insignificant life. With that, the inspector ordered a retreat, telling the police guild to protect citizens and hold their ground. Dick then tossed an opponent aside, telling their new recruit to chill as a massive poison cloud began forming. The user then sucked it right back into the orb. Kimch reined it in so he wouldn't defy his superiors. Then, the fallback began. According to Dusk, both cities seemed evenly matched, but truth be told, the opponent was slowly gaining the upper hand, making him wonder how long they could hold out while he hoped for their player to intervene. With that, Keenan decided to move. His goal was in reach, and this next maneuver would be his last. The Greed Lord would slay the Star Devourer or die trying. Then, like a level-up Manhwa glitch, Player 8 shattered into cheat codes. Back to the brothers' fight. Yun was alarmed when Yul revealed he never planned to defeat city number 99. With that, the final move began, as game piece number 8 started transforming, its outer shell shattering. Just like that, a giant cheat crystal meant to slay the game appeared, exactly as Ule had planned. Yoan couldn't believe it. The whole enemy piece became a bug. He realized Ule and his allies were trying to hack the game's core files, but the player declared they should have deleted him first before ever trying to delete the game. Just then, Mun dodged his brother's swift attack, leaving him completely shocked. With that, Yen began to dodge, parry, and counter every single strike from the beast. The player announced he'd figured out his brother's attack patterns, then used the Soul Strike skill to damage his spirit, earning Yulei's praise once more. But as he summoned the defeated cities, our hero declared he expected nothing less. And so began Yol Choy's final move, to determine which of the two was the true genius. Yam was disappointed his brother resorted to such a simple-minded human wave tactic, but as he restored the defeated cities to their original scale, our protagonist affirmed his will to embrace simplicity. And so, Yen stood silently before a wall of fallen cities, realizing his brother was just stalling for Christina to corrupt the game. So, then, Yin summoned his epic rank orb, Long Live the King, which controls lower-level beings. The minion count scaling with his level, just like that. The orb activated. Yo knew it had two modes. The first, automatic, making soldiers act on their master's programming. And the second, manual, letting the wielder control them directly. Yol Choy was satisfied. He'd finally forced his brother to reveal his true strength. The mob boss was thrilled to fight again. For him, no human life should be on strings, which earned him a strange look from the samurai. But when the first guy asked about that intense level-up Manhwa glare, he agreed. Yeah, they were all in the same boat. Just then, the old man silently stewed, remembering when Yol Choy tried to recruit them. He'd almost refused. This game was a total paradise, after all. But then the samurai glanced over at the kids, just happily messing around. And just like that, he drew his blade, determined to give his kids free will, ready to sacrifice it all to free them from the game's control. A spear took a warrior down hard. As the masked army started gaining the upper hand, the mob boss ordered his men to hold their ground. While the samurai couldn't believe just 5 masks were enough to overwhelm them, Yan was watching and controlling every move, personally directing his units. The genius then sidestepped his brother's beastly attack, jammed his hand into Yul's body, and unleashed a powerful spell. But a powerful shield protected Yul's spirit. Our hero was having a hard time keeping up with his brother. Yan smirked. He knew this strategy inside and out. It was Yul's go-to move. Our hero had a habit of minimizing losses, a classic level-up Manhwa tactic, to go all out in the endgame. Just then, the Spear Maiden saw more game pieces join the fray, and ordered everyone to switch to offense, kicking off their big counterattack. With that, the lieutenant reached for his helmet to activate his skill. Holy War, a one-shot permission ability, usable only with a complete Helden set. Holy War gave every guild member a holy equipment set, plus a blessing that massively buffed their stats. Yan watched as the ridiculously powerful ability was unleashed. Player 99 perfectly predicted his brother's moves. And just as Yol was about to unleash a powerful attack, he was countered by Yan, who cancelled his spell before it could even launch. Still, the genius player felt something was off, like he was missing a variable. Despite knowing his brother's tactics, Yan could sense a subtle change. Our struggling hero declared it wasn't time yet, they needed to attack with more force. Meanwhile, back in the control room, the colonel ordered an all-out assault, demanding they use every monster and golem to grab player 99's attention. But as far as Yan was concerned, their actions were totally useless, as he could predict his brother's every move, and had far better unit control than Yol. Our hero was barely parrying the attacks with his shield. Yan then realized his brother had deployed more units than he could possibly command, leading him to believe Yol was just winging it, which was a real letdown. At that moment, the police forces were barely holding on, but this didn't bother player 99 one bit. As he continued to overpower his brother, our hero thought about how his brother had never hit his limit before, meaning player 99 couldn't predict this exact outcome. Yet, Yan was like a protagonist in a level-up manhwa. He'd simply surpass his limits once he reached them, but he would definitely freeze for a split second from the new sensation, giving city number 8 its only chance to win. Meanwhile, Hiju expertly blocked 2 massive specimens and, through sheer grit, overpowered both her opponents. This left Yan stunned as Yol realized the real test was seeing that tiny window of opportunity. Back then, everyone opposed his insane plan, scolding the tactician for wanting to fight his brother, who outclassed him in every way, as Ula tried to explain, insisting this was their only shot against him. But our hero was totally confused when the soldier ordered him to just focus on his brother. The lieutenant said he and the other units would overwhelm Yan, but Yol insisted they would only get themselves killed. But the soldier argued that since they were fighting for a miracle, they had to go with the strategy with the best odds. That lieutenant was giving his all on the battlefield. While Yan tried to command the entire area, Yol had to focus on his brother's every single move, as his allies created an opening by swarming his brother. And then it happened. Yol swiftly summoned his ultimate weapon, giving his body Jack the Overlord's power. And so, the ultimate move of the Celestial Fang Sword technique activated. And with that, the powerful Heaven Destroyer skill was unleashed. Yan was amazed, his brother caught the one instant he showed weakness. Yol admitted a feat like this was impossible on their home world, since he couldn't even focus on a single task. But now our hero could finally cooperate with others instead of just taking advantage of them. While Yoon only saw humans as pawns, Yol saw a chance to learn and grow, like in a level-up manhwa. With that, Yol Choy finally emerged victorious over his brother. Yan was confused why the protagonist spared him, smirking that this was Ule's only real chance to truly beat him. So, our hero explained he never planned on taking his brother's life. He just needed him restrained to reach his ultimate goal. Ule also added that he and his brother had a lot to discuss once the game was finally over. To make someone an overlord, one of 2 conditions must be met. The target must fear the book wielder or share a deep bond with him. With that, the book began absorbing the defeated Yan. Despite our hero's inability to predict his brother's actions, there was at least one thing he was certain of. Yan deeply cared about him and their parents. Our hero figured his brother wanted to use the game's power to create his own personal utopia. But a world built by one man is no place for people to live. Yol was certain his brother would one day realize this truth. With that matter settled, our hero could now focus on slaying the Star Devourer. The protagonist started walking toward the strange entity, which was none other than his second overlord, who had grown bigger than several game pieces combined. Just then, Yan's aura began to fade, freeing the original player. 99. Yol told the serpent to guard their city. Suddenly, a bright red ascending light appeared on Hugh's side of the map, and on the military and police force battlefields as well. With Yan gone, the masked soldiers started regaining their true selves. The bright red light was visible from anywhere in the city, as it streaked its way right towards the gate. Jack asked Yol if he knew what was past the gate, but our hero had no clue, since Christina had never gone there. This made the protagonist guess their little stunt was a first for this game, and with that, our hero dove into the gate, only to be hit with total darkness. Yol cast a light spell, revealing a horrifying zombie right in front of him. Luckily, an invisible wall separated our grossed-out hero from the nasty thing. Yol then confirmed Jack's suspicions, explaining these worlds were all part of the Star Devourer. The goblin swordmaster pointed out how the zombies looked human. Yul agreed but said something felt off. Just then, a huge explosion erupted on the zombies' side of the barrier. The creatures fighting the zombies admitted that this endless horde was their own damn fault. The talking beasts started regretting using humans as lab rats for their new drugs. And while Yul realized humans weren't top dog here, Jack couldn't get over how stinking cute the creatures were. And so, our hero realized the Star Devourer was using these worlds to munch on emotional energy before dropping to the level below this one. He then found the world that had been completely drained of nourishment for the monster. Its inhabitants were frozen in time, waiting to be summoned as monsters for missions. Yul then decided to go even deeper. He found a pile of broken useless worlds that he could only call a graveyard. The Overlord noted they couldn't go deeper, leaving Yul one option: use his sword to smash through the floor. A massive explosion erupted as our heroes shot from darkness to light, trailing shards of the broken worlds. Yul was completely floored. He and Jack had finally reached their destination. Yul was in a place full of gates, where Christina was locked up. So, our hero began checking out the many portals. Despite its hunger for worlds, the Star Devourer always saved any powerful unit worthy of a demonic or divine rank. Jack then pointed out how hard it would be to find the Greed Lord in this insane level-up Manhwa maze. Yul didn't have an answer. Our hero then recalled the game flagging him as an anomaly that threatened its well-being. This meant there was a high chance the game would just seal away such threats. And suddenly, his book started flying on its own, making Jack guess that it was supposed to be their guide. The book then shot off at incredible speed before slamming right into a barrier. Yul was shocked to see the book cracking reality itself, while Jack worried the noise would give them away. Just then, our hero felt something and dodged a ton of slashes at the last second. As he kept on dodging, our hero was stunned as a bunch of NPCs appeared to take them out. Yul had a bad feeling as Jack warned him their opponents were strong. The protagonist was already painfully aware of that fact, seeing how each non-playable character could perfectly copy his stats and attributes. But according to Yul, that wasn't going to be enough to take him down. The book kept ramming the cracks as the NPCs charged our hero all at once, creating a huge flash of light. Yol Choy knew he was on the clock as the game actively tried to stop him. The Spear Maiden and the Thief were stunned as our hero saw his home, now encircled by various cities, was at risk. Many cities got the order to defeat Game Piece number 8 for trying to destroy their beloved game. The blonde girl told the Dragon Champion to expect some people would be willing to embrace the game. The commander was completely baffled as his forces detected 42 enemy cities approaching with 5 million troops. City number 8 became the target of 10 city eaters and 15 players. To the inspector's absolute shock, his partner thought this attack was a good sign. The game was clearly breaking its own rules to take them down. Dusk realized the game was out of options as Christina prepared for his epic comeback. Ule tore through the enemy forces, stabbing and kicking every NPC out of his way. Just then, the book created a path that our hero spotted instantly, before charging right in. And with that, our hero entered the new space. The NPCs couldn't follow, leaving them totally broken and powerless. Meanwhile, the Spear Maiden warned the enemy forces she would charge them if they dared to trespass, but was only met with blades to her face in response. The Spear Maiden easily deflected the incoming projectiles, making her realize it was pointless to reason with this level-up Manhwa-style game. The soldiers argued they should defend from their city, not fight every unit alone. With that, a shield rose, protecting the entire city. The mob boss ordered an immediate retreat, but the Greek statues charged city number 8 as it fought to take Earth back. At that, Jang and his battalion charged forward to shield the retreating troops. And just like that, another battle began. The lieutenant asked his opponent what intel the game had on them, who replied they were just people aiming to destroy the game and reclaim their planet. As he unleashed a barrage of sword slashes, the man claimed their city was full of idiots, since the gods they worshipped were powerless against players in this level-up Manhwa, let alone the very game that controls them. And yet, city number 8 hoped to destroy it, which he found absolutely ridiculous. The statue then told the lieutenant to just accept his place as a game unit, but swinging his warhammer, the soldier declared he belongs to a human race that despises being controlled. Right before decapitating him, right then, a soldier approached the lieutenant, reporting they'd lost the first line and that over a quarter of their forces had evacuated. With that, the lieutenant ordered his men to hold their ground, knowing full well Yol stood no chance if their home was destroyed, which is why they had to shield it at all costs. Meanwhile, on Yul's side, after he entered the breach, Our hero again found himself in nothingness, before being startled by his sword, which began to react strangely. Suddenly, a massive, three-eyed face appeared behind Yol Choy. Our hero now stood before a giant entity, like nothing he'd ever seen. This massive giant was none other than the Greed Lord's true form. Kroina was relieved by the unit's arrival and ordered Ule, who was still gawking at his real size, to set him free. The ex-player insisted the unit's sword was his key to freedom, but Ule just gave him a deadpan stare as he mulled it over. Our hero wanted the full story on the Greed Lord's past and motives before he even thought about breaking the seal. Prika was curious how the kid would react to a no, so our hero bluntly said he'd just end him, along with the game. This totally ticked off the Greed Lord, who was sure Ule couldn't do jack squat without his help. But our hero shot back that he got here by doing the impossible. A true level-up manhwa story. And then, they faced off. Meanwhile, over with the Spear Maiden, Hiju was unleashing a devastating attack, wondering how they could possibly fight this massive army. But that wasn't even the biggest problem, since the Golden Hand and Great Serpent couldn't handle all these hostiles alone. Just then, a player decided to play his hand, finally picking a card. The card was Durfreet's legendary magic bullet, an unmissable shot aimed at the enemy's MVP. But just then, the guy found himself sliced in half as a colossal sword slammed onto the battlefield. Then, a hand tore through the void and snatched the blade, signaling the Greed Lord's grand entrance. This caught the girl's attention, since their guy was supposed to be helping Yol Choy fight the Star Ear. And with that, three beings stood united against countless enemies. Just then, Christina remembered Yul's question as the players geared up to attack. He thought about getting back everything stolen from him as his sword became a blur of motion. And just like that, every enemy player was wiped out instantly, since Christina was only there to fight for his freedom. A long time ago, the Star Devourer obliterated Christina's homeworld, forging him into the man he is today. But it wasn't all bad, as the game gave him an epiphany about the countless worlds it had consumed, making him realize he just wanted to cruise through space and see what's at the very edge of the universe, which is exactly why the game locked him up when he tried to break free from its grip. Jack was floored that Christina didn't want to kill the Devourer himself, so Yul explained that he wasn't after revenge, and that's why the Greed Lord chose a strategy that would actually improve their odds, because Christina knew the players, both active and fallen. He always made a point to shield the city. Yul was now on deck to fight an alien with unknown powers, key in hand, and our hero then clicked the final piece into place. Jack then pointed out that Yul was their only real shot at beating this unknown thing that totally outclassed them, but our hero just said he was giving him too much credit. Then, as the gate materialized before them, Yol Choy was dead set on living up to the hype, and so our hero started to open the gates. But the second he did, our hero was blasted back by a liquid he first thought was water. But just then, it hit him, and he just burst out laughing, leaving Jack totally confused and scrambling to explain things to the Overlord. As he started crying from laughter, our hero realized this liquid was actually concentrated emotions. As an angry face just materialized on it, Yol Choy figured the Star Devourer feeds on emotions. Emotions so concentrated they became a literal liquid. Just as he thought about what consumed them, a giant entity burst through the cheat gates, its face sizzling with pure rage. Our hero realized this huge monster was the game's true form. The creature was covered in eyeballs. Yo was shocked by its true form, like a whale or some kind of microbe. Our hero quickly realized he couldn't get a read on the beast, not passive, not aggressive, maybe not even alive, as despite seeing it, Yol felt like he was staring into a void when suddenly an intense sensation slammed the young man, as the emotion pool made him lose control all over again. Jack told him to get his feelings under control, which the protagonist found pretty darn challenging. Yul knew he had to act fast, or he would simply fade into this pool of emotions. With that, Jack was left totally floored as our hero figured out the solution. The creature was then promptly attacked. Yulanam's astral form explained feelings come from the brain, so our hero decided to ditch his brain and body to keep a hold of himself. The protagonist then got a kick out of the Overlord's confused expression after it inhabited his body. To Eula's shock, Jack explained that his attack didn't even scratch the beast, making our protagonist feel like he'd missed a crucial detail. Just then, bright spots appeared on the Star Devourer right before it damaged Ule's soul and body. Our protagonist was shocked it used magic and weapons. Just then, the cosmic predator started to glow in different spots, unleashing a storm of spells and weapons on Ule's spirit and body, bombarding them with seemingly infinite attacks. Just then, a light appeared above the monster, as Yul decided to launch an all-out attack from the high ground. But, tough luck, his attacks phased right through the beast once again. Yo was floored that his anti-spectre attack failed, especially since the target had no real presence. But our hero was mostly shocked that the Greed Lord's power didn't affect the monster at all. Just then, the protagonist spotted the monster targeting them, unleashing another tempest of blades upon our hero. Yo figured the key to victory, like in a level-up manhwa, must be childishly simple, assuming the beast was on a different plane. In other words, Yol Choy just had to get them both into the same dimension. Right then, the Greed Lord's blade began to vibrate, along with all the rest of the cheat codes, including the one supporting city number 8, making Hiu guess this was an earthquake as everything trembled. Christina grew alarmed, having never witnessed the cheat key acting so strangely before. Back to Yol Choy and Jack's fight. Our heroes unleashed a huge attack, only for it to phase through the emotion feaster again. At this point, Ula and Jack had used every single attack in the game to take it down, only to fail spectacularly as the beast readied another attack. Just then, you'd see his sword react to the beast's light, before getting blasted by another storm of spells and weapons. The young man then told the old goblin, who was struggling to defend them, that he had a plan. Yul survived this wave of swords thanks to his trusty shield. The beast was about to launch another attack, but Jack stood ready with Christina's sword. The blade started reacting weirdly, just like before, confirming Yul's suspicion that the cheat key was reacting to the game's light. But since it was just a theory, our hero decided to test it. Yol Choy seemed baffled, finding himself elsewhere before snapping back to reality, leaving our hero completely stunned by what he had just witnessed. Just then, a huge explosion erupted, and the beast was finally hit, leaving it marked. Seeing this made our hero realize a part of the monster now existed in their dimension after being struck by the cheat key. This totally fired Jack up. With that, our heroes began their counterattack. He figured they didn't have enough bugs to slay the game, and speculated he could harm the monster by using magic on its exposed parts, when another vision suddenly hit him. This intrigued our protagonist, as he only sees them when a cheat key piece touches the emotional parasite. This got Yul thinking that the cheat codes were, in fact, the fallen worlds trying to pull the beast into their plane of existence. Our hero knew the cheat codes on his blades weren't enough. Just then, the monster opened its massive mouth, unleashing a monstrous energy blast like no other. Luckily, Yul and his overlord managed to dodge the annihilation. At that, our hero had no choice but to bail as Jack demanded a strategy. And so, they dashed for the crack and got out fast, alarming all the NPCs, only for the game to emerge from its domain to chase them, consuming some non-playable characters. The beast tried to suck the units right in. Yul wondered about the fallen worlds, the origin of the cheat codes, since they had just decided to assist him with their power. But the truth was crystal clear. The worlds were patiently waiting for someone to reach the core of this level-up manhwa so they could get revenge. And just like that, countless cheat keys rained from the sky, all targeting the cosmic whale, slowly pulling it into this dimension. With that, Yol Choy confirmed Jack's suspicions, as they now faced the true form of the Star Devourer. Yol Choy then saw the cheat codes acting weirdly, and was shocked that he and Jack were now in their original forms. The protagonist felt incredible strength in his body. Now that he had regained his flesh, Jack agreed with Yul, who pointed out this new power far surpassed Berserker. And with that, a huge blue light lit the sky, and from the dust emerged Yol Choy and Jack. Yul reminded Jack that, though they could now harm the beast, it still outclassed them, which Jack agreed with as he charged right ahead. Affirming this disadvantage was the real fun part. The cosmic whale unleashed a storm of blades toward our hero, but the goblin swordsman dodged and parried each weapon, before trying to strike the beast. Yet, as his blades casually bounced off the beast, Jack got knocked away after hitting an immovable object. Yol Choy figured the feeling consumer would keep renewing its strength as long as it roamed the emotion pool, so he resorted to one of his sword's powers, trying to hook the monster and fish it out of the water. Yul was determined to get the beast away from its energy source, and just like that, the colossal creature was sent flying through the ceiling. Yul then ordered his overlord to push it forward, depriving it of its nutrient source. With that, the monster was pulled out of its own abyss. Meanwhile, Christina was busy impaling an entity's heart. The Greed Lord fought with all his might just to hold his ground. But right then, the player witnessed the giant monster rising from beneath the clouds. The beast was being pushed upwards at high speed. Yul and Jack were doing their best to get the beast away from the emotions. The Star Devourer couldn't take it anymore, unleashing its first roar and forcing every living creature within its domain to bend the knee. The only exception were the inhabitants of Game Piece 8, who were being shielded by the cheat crystals. But this wasn't the end. As it released a second cry, it compelled every creature in the game to take down Yol and his units. The lieutenant pointed out how the beast even turned their own allies into foes. But despite their bad luck, the soldier decided to see it through to the end. But just as he was about to assault his crazed allies, they all began to fall to the ground, leaving the man completely shocked. This sudden pass-out even confused the great monster, so Yol Choy explained to the Star Devourer that the plan wasn't to kill it, as he needed to take its powers to restore their lost planet. Seeing how the cheat codes could bend the rules of the game, a classic level-up Manhwa move, Yol directly connected his blade to the beast to access its status window. The protagonist then revealed he and City 8 spent 3 centuries in the abandoned world just to craft a tool that could hack the game. This item, which can currently only affect units, would soon be able to command players after gaining enough power. With that, the giant whale charged at the 2 units, leaving them on high alert. Jack and Yol tried their best to block the monster's massive body, and just as Yol thought he'd reached the end of his path, a fierce blue blast struck the Star Devourer. Yol was confused, only to see the Spear Maiden and Lieutenant flying to his rescue. Hiju affirmed that they should fall back, which Yol Choy agreed with, but not before using the emergency escape code. Our protagonist wanted to know how the 2 of them managed to get out of the city. So, Hiju explained the Greed Lord lent them his power, which confused him, as Christina supposedly gave him her entire supply of cheat crystals, only to find him surrounded by tons of them. The Greed Lord had hoped to use these crystals to abandon our heroes in case of defeat, in order to live and fight another day. But in the end, this entity was Player 8, which is why he decided to use all of his resources for this unique opportunity. Yol Choy felt oddly glad that Christina planned to lead them to their doom until the very end. As the cosmic whale let out a fierce roar, Hiu laid out the plan. The protagonist drains the creature's power while they fight it, which got Jack hyped to see her progress. Yoloid voiced his thanks, now relying on them for this final battle. The lieutenant popped his shield, a powerful barrier, only to get tossed around like a toy by the beast. With that, Jack and his pupil charged right at the monster, unleashing a storm of cuts and slashes upon it. But they quickly saw their attacks were totally useless, so they just decided to keep the beast off the protagonist. Just then, the Star Devourer let out a mighty roar, making 4 City Eaters assault its biggest threat. But the entities were quickly sliced up by Christina's blade, who was protecting her best unit. With that, both book owner and wielder realized the game wasn't directly controllable. Their tool only let them work through the system. With deities and demons unleashed, the colonel ordered the citizens to stay cool and slay the entities one by one, to shield their home from harm. And so, all charged ahead to take on the fierce monsters. The great servant Krishino and the 2 inspectors fought their hardest against the attacking players. While Jack and Hiju tried to distract the strongest creature, the Greed Lord used his crystals for the cheat sword deep inside the monster, and Yul was trying his best to end it all. As City Number 8 burned, covered in the corpses of units, the sword was almost out of cheat keys. Yol, so close to his goal, knew his resources weren't enough. With Christina out of cheat crystals, everyone tried their best to wound the monster. But just then, the last cheat crystal was consumed before Yol Choy could end the beast, making the Greed Lord think his last move was a total failure. But against all odds, our hero embraced hope, planning to siphon the beast's energy to restore their world, like a true level-up manhwa protagonist. When suddenly, the protagonist was face to face with the cosmic predator, before being swallowed whole to everyone's horror. Yul realized the Star Devourer had eaten him, and he would be digested once his cheat energy ran out. In the face of the end, Yol Choy decided to strike the monster from the inside one last time. When suddenly, a voice from the book said this would be his most illogical decision yet. And then, a hand emerged from the book, summoning items and explaining that when objects of different worlds collide in-game with enough energy, an error is born. Yet, after analyzing the collision, one could use the right formula to select the correct item set with the exact speed and energy. Just like that, Jan revealed the secret to creating cheat crystals. This amazed the young man, who guessed his brother used these errors to free himself and asked if he was trying to fight him. Yet, the player only answered with silence, setting up the control panel for his brother. Yo was confused as his brother ignored him and kept explaining, seemingly trying to help him in his quest. Yaman affirmed that by colliding more than half of the existing items, they could grab enough small crystals, but Yol swore they couldn't collect the set items. But his brother reassured him, having already figured out the solution. Yoon, who held the starter dice, explained they could tweak its algorithm to hit their goal, as it held every single in-game item. This made Yul realize his brother, who outplayed him in the game, never even got a starter pack. He was speechless. Yan, who'd rather just embrace the game, affirmed this was a call the hero had to make. This left his brother even more confused by the sudden help. Yan explained the reason was his defeat against Yul. Jack, Zhang and Hiju found themselves facing the Star Eater with completely shattered weapons. Yen refused to waste time in-game. He could still build his utopia. The game was just a faster route. The player was about to finish the policeman, but as the inspector tried shielding his partner by blocking the huge blade, he was left completely shocked, as they were suddenly in a totally different place. And while the first guy assumed it was a trap, the second had his doubts. With that, Dix used his umbrella to get airborne, and the sight left him speechless. They had actually returned to their original home world. Everyone was shocked as status windows vanished, and phones worked again. All felt relieved. But the lieutenant wondered if this was Ule's grand tactic. Ku pointed out that neither the protagonist of this level up Manhwa nor Jack were anywhere to be seen. As the planet was being restored, Yul thanked Yan for his help. With only one task remaining, our hero, backed by his brother, his two overlords, and the Greed Lord, will now end the Star Devourer for good. Krishna advised caution, as Jack explained how injured beasts get really violent. With that, the monster prepared to launch a powerful attack. Everyone stood on guard, ready for the blast, but to their shock, the monster cracked like stone. Yol couldn't believe his eyes as two small Star Devourers appeared, children of the great beast. The two newborns then began channeling their energy. Everyone expected a devastating attack to follow. The hero was floored as their assault wasn't meant to harm him and his allies, and a great flash of light erupted. And just like that, our heroes were left standing with a giant, empty eggshell. Krusha was stunned. The creature used all its energy to get its children to safety. Yol Choy silently pondered how the energy they took had vanished. He speculated that the Star Devourer died using its remaining strength to get its offspring to safety. Yen suspected the dead monster intended to use its children as a tool for revenge, but Ul quickly brushed that aside, saying it was only protecting its descendants. This made the young genius recall his late parents, who sacrificed themselves for him. According to our protagonist, this level-up manhwa wasn't a tale of good versus evil, but simply Earth's story of escaping a natural predator. With that, our heroes agreed they should return to their world. Since every game piece had been restored after changing, our heroes must act fast in the hope of preserving order. But Yol Choy waved them off. He already had a plan. According to the New Earth News, 2 years passed since Yol Choy and his allies from City Number 8 ended the crazy game. They were now immortalized on the Wall of Heroes. The reporter announced City 8 was now Acidol. And yeah, the old unit confirmed it. They confirmed the game totally redrew the map around core cities. With Acidol being the big cheese, the reporter pointed out that some folks actually hated the heroes for winning, which the man confirmed. He called them outcasts of paradise who mistook the game for a utopia. This group thought people could be reincarnated in the game, but that reincarnation was just code, meaning those folks weren't really alive. Some didn't care about this detail, so the arguments were expected to last a long time. So, the duo decided to check on what the other heroes of City Number 8 were up to. Meanwhile, in the first felony division of the solar system, a man was getting ticked off at the outcasts of paradise for getting way out of hand. Even though he felt their pain, Chol knew throwing punches wasn't the answer. While turning into a dragon, he suggested they proceed. With that, the police descended on the riot. The Black Bear of Storms, Lunak Seu, threatened to wreck anyone who didn't listen. At the same time, in the city's tallest building, the guy on the phone told the chairman they were moving 16 legendary items, all with the lady's go-ahead. The chairman was seriously relieved to hear that and wished the guy a safe trip back. Then, he wondered how the lady, still in her prime, could have possibly declined his offer. I mean, his offer was unbeatable after all. He was Dusk Choy, a.k.a. the Golden Hand, and chairman of the solar system's biggest corporation, Homik, under the blue sky. Hiju was floored that the lady turned down the chairman's offer. Jayu just confirmed she'd rather work solo. This made the worried spear maiden thank her for the support, which helped her stick with her choice. But the former thief reassured her friend, since she was none other than the Divine Eye, Ju Kang, a top-tier item evaluator. The evaluator asked where she was, and Hiju revealed she was on Mars. Jayu realized her friend was off solving someone else's problem again, which Hiju confirmed, wanting to keep up with Jack and Yol Choy. But right then, Hiju suddenly decided to hang up, saying she'd call right back, cutting Jayu off mid-sentence. Meanwhile, two tribes were gearing up for a throwdown. Earth wasn't the only planet saved from that beast. Most trapped worlds were put back to normal, but some were so wrecked they had to be mashed together with other planets. The dwarf called the orc unworthy of the mine, saying they'd just make ugly weapons. But the orc shot back that a weapon's only value is its power, making looks and reasons totally pointless. But just then, the dragon's avatar ordered them to knock it off. This was the system's second son, Hiugo, a true level-up Manhwa hero known as the Dragon Master of the Blue Flames. But when she tried to reason with them, the woman got a totally unexpected reaction. The dwarf was completely enchanted by her spear, while the orc was more interested in her strength, falling head over heels for her. With that, the lady decided to ditch these weird admirers. Meanwhile, in Earth's outer orbit, on a ship with the Sami unit, an outer space special response team for the Intersolar System forces, the White Comet's chief commander John warned the men to be careful, as they were escorting elves to a new shelter beyond the solar system. And just like that, the interdimensional warp started. At the same time, on the moon with the Choy brothers and the Greed Lord, Ula wanted to know if the entity was going to leave. Christina confirmed that despite his love for this universe, he was chasing a greater prize, wanting to see what was beyond the Star Eater, to observe the universal ecosystem. But Yol still couldn't get his urge to leave. I mean, they had liberated countless universes, but the entity confirmed it wanted to explore the unknown. It then pointed out the chance that a creature exists that preys on the almighty game, all while regaining its true size, which made Yol beg him to stop with the scary theories. Kashina confirmed again that he was driven by his thirst for knowledge. With that, Yol couldn't argue, but a huge issue remained. As his own brother, Jan chose to leave with a Greed Lord instead of staying with him. Jan then asked his brother if he could protect himself from him if he tried to prey on his land, but Ula assured him he misunderstood. Jan explained family meant everything, and how Ula blew his chance to bring their parents back to life. The protagonist revealed he tried to revive everyone who fell, like a quest in a level-up manhwa, but he was powerless to do so. The genius revealed this was the exact reason for his departure, totally confusing his brother. Jan explained that if a creature mightier than the Star Devourer existed, he'd use its power to revive their father and mother. Ule was then left completely dumbfounded, trying to explain how their parents had already reached the afterlife. But Jan insisted that not all hope was lost, as he saved their data in this ore before the game ended, asking his brother to wait for him, as he would return with their parents. The former player proposed they play one more time against each other for universe dominance, before vanishing into the portal with the Greed Lord. This made Ula fear he'd unleashed a far greater danger on the galaxy than a celestial-sized consumer. Jack then noted the protagonist will have plenty to keep him busy, which our hero agreed with, affirming their approach was the same as they had to make preparations. They had to refine their techniques, sharing intel and items while evolving together. Our heroes would live to fight another day. Even if a threat greater than the game was out there, our heroes would surely live on. At the same time, the current events and many others were being watched by entities far bigger than the game. According to the system, the humanoid creatures had enough material for the seed. And with that, the seed crafting began. Just like that, a creation seed was forged, a level-up manhwa artifact to make new life in the chosen galaxy.